Welcome to In the Meantime at Grace Episcopal Church. On this 50th anniversary of Earth Day, I want to propose a radical idea to you today. We'll start by defining the term slavery. Slavery, in this definition, is a system of using inexpensive energy to obtain economic gains for those who control the energy at the expense and suffering of other human beings. Now, I understand this is an unusual definition because it stresses a general notion of energy. It also uncouples the idea of who suffers and when they suffer. Classic slavery in the 19th century and before that relied upon human energy. Human beings were intelligent and useful forms of energy for working farms, picking crops, constructing buildings, railroads, and highways, and for domestic chores too. The people who provided the energy were the ones who were exploited and suffered. In the United States, it was mainly white people and some Native Americans who owned slaves and who benefited economically from this inexpensive labor obtained by a system of owning other human beings. Now, if you accept this broad definition of slavery, then according to that definition, every person living in the developed world today is a slave owner. We are slave owners because of two things. First, we have available to us an almost endless supply of inexpensive energy. We pay a market price for the energy we transform, but the price we pay does not reflect the true cost. And that leads to the second half of our definition. Our use of abundant, inexpensive energy today does not cause a lot of immediate suffering. If it did, most of us might be hesitant to use it so readily. But the energy that we use today by transforming it into heat is guaranteed to cause suffering that we can barely imagine in just one or two human generations. We benefit today by passing the true cost of our energy down to future generations. Extreme weather will continue to push historical trends in all directions. Extreme heat, extreme cold, extreme droughts, extreme floods, sea level rise and extreme tides, entire states turned into deserts, coastal cities spending billions to keep the sea out until the next major storm overtops those developments, extinction of animal and plant species, crop failures, and rare tropical diseases headed to the more temperate zones in the world where most people live. If you'll forgive the pun, today we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg. Now, there are many people who still cling to the propaganda that the weather we are seeing is caused by, quote, natural variations. And you know what? They're correct about 1% of the time. The other 99% of the weather changes we observe cannot be explained by natural variations. Another group of people use energy with a devil-may-care attitude because they claim that technology will rescue future generations. There are movie stars who own and fly their own personal Boeing 727 jets as a hobby. They burn thousands of gallons of fuel to fly 4 people from LA to New York because it's fun and they can afford it. There are tech moguls who sail 300-foot yachts crewed by 40 full-time crew members. The ships come complete with helicopters and an 8-person submarine that can stay down below for a week. Technology will, in fact, help mitigate the impact of our energy use by making things more energy efficient. But it is not likely that improvements in energy efficiency will even come close to offsetting the increased demand of more and more people wanting that cheap energy lifestyle. Global trade with China has moved 300 million people out of poverty into middle-class lifestyles, almost equal to the entire population of the United States. China now builds one brand new coal-fired electric plant every week just to keep pace with the demand. Now, I share these ideas with you not to make you feel guilty, but to make you aware. Part of the brilliance of the cheap energy lifestyle is it is ubiquitous. Most of us are not even aware of the choices we make in our energy use. We find it hard to imagine ourselves as slave owners benefiting on the misery of our grandchildren. But we cannot change what we cannot see. I'm only trying to get you to see the problem. And the problem is we are all addicted to cheap energy. We are all slave owners. The true cost of our profligate lifestyles today will be paid by people who had no say in the matter because they are not yet born. What can we do about it? The first step is simple awareness. When you purchase your next automobile, do you really need that 8,000-pound gigantic humongous SUV? Or would something a bit more modest suffice? Energy use factors into all kinds of decisions about daily life, including our diet. Do you really need to eat beef 4 or 5 times a week? Pound for pound, beef requires more water, more land, more energy inputs than any other source of protein. Study the problem. Teach your children. Make small changes in your daily decisions. Plant a tree. Help it grow. Imagine that you're having a conversation with your great-grandchild. Imagine that someday you can proudly tell them, I finally cleaned myself up and got rid of my addiction to cheap energy so that you would not have to clean up my mess.